What are some of the things that you look for in the organization of the deliverables, of the information that's gathered, of requests from the client side, from the in-house landman side, that's important to you? You mentioned the spreadsheets. What other stuff are you looking for in the organization?
We need to know one thing that's really really important, because now that the world has changed and we're spending so much money on land. It never used to be this way. Now it's these resource plays, they're a land play, then they're an engineering play, then they're a geology play. The script has been flipped in the last 20 years. And so it's really important for me in house that that I can walk into a meeting and I have exactly the number of acres that we've leased, the number of acres committed, which is important so that we can plan what kind of money we need to have available, and leased, committed, and how much money we've spent to date. And so what's really good about what Dudley has as a product that I can log into every day, the Calm system. And I walk in the morning, I kept it up all day long, because you never know when you're going to go into a meeting, and it's updated on the fly sometimes. And I can print that out, or I can grab my laptop and I can go into any meeting at any time, and I can have real answers instead of for my management, instead of saying, well, I'll have to call, I have to get that to you, and probably be tomorrow because they're out doing stuff. I have those answers, and that's huge. And that goes back to my first point, where your broker is there to keep you out of the ditch. And when you can walk into a meeting at any time of the day unannounced, and somebody goes, hey, I need to know where you are. I'm going to another meeting. I need these numbers, and I print it out and go, here it is right here. And that's invaluable, actually, because it makes me look good, and it also makes Dudley look good in the eyes of my, say, my VP of land, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing that we tend to see on the projects that we do is that there's always a gap between, different from in-house guy to in-house guy as to what information they should really expect or know that they can get from the broker. We've had so many reps with William. He knows exactly what we can provide, and he understands our process, and he understands the tools that are out there to provide all this information. But oftentimes we find ourselves, we're engaged in a project with a client and they don't know what they can ask for or what is customary or what we should be able to provide them. So we tend to, we're saying, hey, I feel like you might need this. Here's what we have available to you. This is the information that we're capturing by default. And, there's 8 or 10 things. That's, what's the burn rate on your project? What are your average costs per day? How many people do you have on the job? What are we spending per quarter or per week with staff? All those things are super important for budgeting and planning. On the acquisition side, again, how many acres have we bought? Where are those acres? How much commitments do we have outstanding? And more importantly, how many dollars are we obligated to from a commitment standpoint? Who are those people? What did we buy in the last week? How many acres did we buy? How many leases was that? What are our commitments aging? We call it's an internal term, but you can report commitments, and that's all great. But if a commitment stays on your committed list for 6 weeks, it's really not a commitment. You probably should pull that off. And if you're not able to monitor and stay on top of that, and it just gets added to a list, then before you know it, your data is meaningless. So that's a big thing. I think as an in-house guy, we really if you got to encourage, we encourage our clients that if you feel like you need something, or there's something you're having to manually go through on a weekly basis to provide, you should probably ask for it, because we capture it. And those are things that your broker should be doing. They should have the ability to do that. And if they can't, well, then that's one of the red flags. If you can't give on the fly good information that's accurate and manageable and lives and breathes in some sort of system, as opposed to some massive spreadsheet, you're just asking for trouble in the long run.
William, what's the most successful way for you to communicate with that PM? Is it just picking up the phone after the meeting and giving a call? How do you like to correspond?
Yeah, I'm kind of old school in that, and I'll pick up the phone. I'm not. You can always email and text guys stuff, but um, picking up the phone and talking to your broker, you get your message across. It's across because it's a one-on-one conversation, but it also leads to other conversations sometimes and other questions. So it's better to just pick up the phone, have the conversation, and then if you need to email some details about what you just talked about, then do that. It's a little hard to communicate a lot of things with an email that gets lost in translation or you forget about it. So
Yeah.
it's all about talking one on one, and you can't over communicate.
Yeah, especially on the fly. Leasing projects are hot and heavy, and the conditions always change. The directive always change. The priorities always change. And so if you're relying on, an email or a weekly email in your update, you're behind.
Right.
If you can't, again, I go back to being proactive. If you're not informed as a manager on the broker side, you can't be proactive with keeping your guy out of the ditch, as old Fry used to say. It's super important. And it's a trust thing too. If you feel like you have to email everything to cover your butt, man, that's an unhealthy relationship. And as a broker, if I know that, and I can trust that, my client is informing me and I can be proactive and make decisions, and I'm not going to get sailed down the river because we have that trust in that relationship. That's a huge deal. And it allows us to act on the fly and zig when we need to, zig, and zag when we need to zag.